We are going to move on to our next panel of speakers, which is under the growth marketing. Okay, the discussion is called Gear Up 2023, creating a 360 journey to grow your customers. Our moderator for this session will be Mark Opao, the communications planning partner for APAC, Middle East, Turkey and Africa at Kaspersky. And of course, he will be joined by Anna Henwood, CEO at Stickybeak, and Nancy Almasco, Marketing Director at FlowerStore.ph. The stage is yours, my friends. Let's give them a round of applause. Keep the energy up.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Jeremiah, for the introduction. So I am Mark, a communications planning partner representing cybersecurity firm Kaspersky, handling paid media and investments in Asia Pacific, Middle East, Turkey, and Africa. Hope everyone is still perked up. It was a very engaging audience engagement conversation a while ago. Are you still okay? Everyone still okay? All right. So for today, we're in this session, we are going to have a panel discussion. I am very honored to moderate this first panel discussion of this conference. And the topic is centering on growth marketing. In particular, growing an insight-driven 360-degree growth strategy for brands. Now, there's a lot of big words in there, right? There is like 360 degrees, there's insight-driven. So today, we would like to uncover some of these growth marketing strategies. And together with me are two lovely ladies and industry veterans at that. I have Nancy and I have Anna. And together we're going to have this conversation on how they're able to develop these 360-degree growth marketing strategies in their respective companies, as well as in their previous experiences. Are you guys ready? So the first question is for you, Nancy. So FlowerStore is actually an online platform that sells a lot of gifting offerings for several occasions. So I went to the website itself, and I've seen that apart from selling flowers primarily, they're also selling a lot of gift items, from personalized items to wine, to cakes, to teddy bears, so on and so forth. So in your experience, Nancy, how do you actually define a 360-degree journey for your customers? And what are the key considerations in developing that 360-degree journey?
For a 360 consumer journey, it's not a marketing strategy. Make no mistake, it's not a marketing strategy. It's a strategy you roll out in your organization. It's a company-wide effort where everyone is involved, not just marketing, but also your sales team, your customer support, your operations, your business development team. Because for you to create or to commit to that 360 consumer journey, you have to make sure that everyone is onboarded, right? So from your marketing team who can create personalized communication, hyper-targeted ads, communication that is very tailor-fit to a certain segment or target audience, they have to have access to a consumer data that is unified, siloed, and is very integrated. And along with this, your customer support should also have access to this consumer data. Why? Because for you to deliver a 360 consumer journey, you have to ensure that your customer support can also deliver a personalized interaction. So for example, if one customer is calling and is inquiring for a specific gift or flowers, etc., you should be able to access a consumer data internally, and from that, you create a meaningful interaction with your customer. You make predictive analysis and recommendation that, hey, this is actually what we can recommend based on your needs. And at this point, your customer can say, oh, okay, this brand actually understands me. This brand actually can address my need. And from that, it would lead to purchase. From here, this is where your operations and commercial team would come in. No? So they should be able to offer you or to offer your customers specific curated products that would address the need of your customer. In our case, it's really more on the gifting options that we have for any occasion that you would be celebrating, be it birthday, anniversary, etc. And then, of course, you should be able to deliver on the promise of, for instance, for us, it's really on the free shipping, the same-day delivery. And with this, for you it's an end-to-end effort. It's an end-to-end effort from the discovery of your brand to making an inquiry, to making a purchase, to receiving your item. This should be seamless and very efficient for your customers. A 360-degree, like what I've mentioned earlier, a 360-degree consumer journey is not a marketing effort. It's a company-wide effort where everyone should be involved, from your top-level management down to your associates.
Yeah, thank you, Nancy. It's really an excellent answer, and I really totally agree with what you said regarding the involvement of everyone in the company. It's not defining or generating a 360-degree journey. It's not just about the task of the marketing people or the brand team. It's actually a joint effort of everyone in the company across all departments, and most importantly, we need to get the buy-in from top management, and the top management should actually be highly involved in developing that kind of journey. Thank you, Nancy. It was a very great answer. And actually, it actually resonated as well with the engagement discussion a while ago, talking about defining your customers. So I think Daniel talked about not just talking to your end consumer, but they also have audiences, including their drivers, their riders, so on and so forth. So it's really a company-wide effort, and that's what we are really taking. It's a good way to start having that perspective in mind. So the next question goes to Anna. So Stickybeak is actually an online research platform that uses social media to gather customer-driven insights for any type of marketing task, from pre-testing, campaign pre-testing, to product launches, so on and so forth. So for you, Anna, since you are customer insights or consumer insights expert, and you've been a very experienced marketer for the past 20 years, how do you actually map out that 360-degree journey? And what would be, based on your experience, like pitfalls for that?
Thanks, Mark. So I think you said veteran, and now you've said over 20 years experience, so I'm old, is probably the first key point there. But in my experience, what I've found most important with developing your customer journeys is actually starting with the customer. And it sounds really simple, but what tends to happen is you try and figure out your company view to start with, and what you want or you'd like the customer's journey to be. And I think we've all seen those memes where there's the footpath and then there's the walked path of what people do. And that's the risk, is that if you don't truly understand your customer's journey, and not just the part where they experience your brand or product or service, but the context around that. So is it in the morning? Is it part of a busy work day? Where are they engaging with you, and what does that bring? Now, obviously, that's easier said than done, because all your customers will have slightly different journeys and slightly different paths, but there'll be commonalities in there that you can understand. So start with gathering everything you've got so you can understand where your gaps are, and then obviously use observation, like Danny said, like actually immerse yourself in there. Use data capture opportunities, use feedback and questioning and focus groups and research, and use everything you can to gather that in. But don't let it become too big that it paralyzes you. So as soon as you can, start visualizing that information that you've got. That can be scrappy post-it notes, that can be drawings on paper, but just start getting up what you know so you can see where you've got information and where you haven't. And visualizing it as well, to Nancy's point, helps it go beyond just a team or a function, but become something that everyone in the business can see and understand, because you have to keep it alive. It's also not a one and done job. There's some acceleration to really deeply understand, but then there's ongoing information and insights that you can have to continue to enrich that journey. So visualize it and make it visible for everyone, whether that's online through intranets or platforms that everyone's on, or whether that's physical on a wall in the office, whatever that might be. Bring it to life so that you can really make it part of your thinking and the way that you do your day-to-day marketing and wider business.
All right, thank you, Anna. So I think what Anna emphasized in her sharing is that first, start with the customer. I think all of us marketers agree with that statement, and that should always be on top of our heads when we design this customer journey. They should be at the heart of everything we do in marketing. And what she also mentioned is that we're now, in this day and age, we're not just limited to focus group discussions. We're not just limited to commissioning a market research agency to do that kind of job for us. There are so many ways for us to execute or to gather customer insights in more real time, in a faster, in a quicker way possible, and of course, including Stickybeak. So please reach out to Anna if you're very curious about what they do in the company. And also, it can range from observation. It's a very free thing to do for you to gather your team to observe how people consume your products, and of course, to the more advanced techniques and what Anna is touching a little bit more on the concept of design thinking. So what I've taken from her is that do whatever you can to gather as much customer data as possible, but avoid getting paralyzed by it. So she made a very good point about the visualization. She made a very good point about trying to visualize it in many different ways in a way that everyone can understand and everyone can basically, you make it alive. You kind of, it's an ongoing journey from brand discovery down to people advocating about your brand. Okay, thank you very much, ladies, for that first segment. So now we're touching on the second segment. So the second segment now talks about brand expansion. Okay, so I'm going back to you, Nancy. And you did mention in our last meeting that your flower store actually expanded in Vietnam and Thailand. And this is definitely a very challenging task, especially during this time. And when you were expanding in these two markets, when do you, of course, brand expansion, you need to have a very comprehensive plan in place. You need to pre-plan very well. But at what point in that process you'll need to stop and think and analyze the performance, or what, try to understand how is your brand expansion efforts going, and what customer data, based on your experience, what customer data is crucial or important for you to kind of make decisions onwards to whether you will continue to expand in that region or you need to make some optimizations in your expansion?
I think the good thing about, for example, a startup, this is where brand expansion would mean scaling your business, not just here in the Philippines, but regionally. But the thing is, for you to do this, and it's not making really a stop and pause effort. It's actually a continuous effort in analyzing, understanding, and recalibrating. So first is, with this one, before you decide to expand, be it regionally or where you're currently operating, now you want to cover other areas, for example, here in the Philippines, it's really more on setting your KPIs first. You have to make sure that you set your key performance indicators, because that's how you can measure if you are succeeding or if you need to recalibrate, right? So for example, for us being an e-commerce platform, it is really more on ensuring that we get users to our website. So that's traffic. First. Second is orders, because you really cannot expect orders to come in if people are not visiting your website, right? This is not like the brick and mortar store where when people go to the store, they would decide there if they want to purchase or not, or if they're going to visit other stores for price comparison, etc. In our case, being in the e-commerce scape or landscape, it's really more on driving people to the website and then making that effort in your website to ensure that every visit will somehow either a purchase or a consideration. So for a purchase, that's a successful one, right? But for consideration, it's like, I'm not going to purchase now, but this is at the back of my head already, right? So you do retargeting at this point. But in terms of when do you stop, I wouldn't really say make a stop. It's a continuous effort. So week on week, month on month, you do an analysis, you review your data, you review performance, you measure your success or the numbers that you have versus your KPIs. That would tell you where you are in your brand expansion or product launches. Now, if things are not working for you, that is fine. You don't necessarily stop. You don't say, oh, okay, this is not working, we have to stop. No, scaling is a tough thing to do, and it has really a lot of challenges along the way. So what you need to make sure is you have that agility and flexibility to recalibrate your strategy. So how do you do that? One thing is revisit your strategy. Things are not working. What are the opportunity areas? Second, revisit your data. Are people visiting your website but not converting? Is your bounce rate high? Is people churning? Is cancellation rate high? Or if they're making a purchase, what's making them make a purchase? So you have to have these questions that would give you answers, insights, that will help you decide on what to do next. Now, after this one, you revisit your strategy. If things are not really working, you recalibrate, you discuss this with your top-level management, you involve your marketing, you involve your operations team, your sales team, and then you decide what can you do. But you have to always refer to your KPI and to your data, because this will help you decide and make aligned decision. The good thing about having a unified consumer data is that there will be no conflicting decision, because you're looking at one data, and one data is the truth. That is your absolute truth, and that's where you should start your effort for recalibrating your strategy, or for continuing if you're really succeeding. Like, where can you optimize and where can you make some changes?
Okay, thank you, Nancy. So Nancy emphasized in this question, the value of setting KPIs. And when we say KPIs, it's not just setting KPIs for the sake of any KPI. Make sure that you have available and accessible data to access or to monitor the performance of your expansion plans. And she mentioned about having this regular catch-ups, regular meetings with your team, and hopefully you're able to involve various stakeholders in the company, including the top management, to discuss what are the current challenges that you're facing in that particular point in time. And I love what Nancy said, that you should not stop. It's not an expansion activity or an expansion initiative is definitely not an easy feat, but you should not stop on the onset. So try to exhaust all the possible ways for you to recalibrate, to optimize your plans and your strategies, and you will definitely get there with a joint effort from everyone in the company. Thank you, Nancy. And for Anna, so Anna, I'm sure you're handling a lot of clients in Stickybeak, and of course, each client would have different needs and different objectives. So when it comes to consumer insights, start with the customer insight gathering process. And based on experience, what, in terms of brand expansion, what are, say, can you state any specific KPI or data that allows you to create a very good brand expansion plan?
Yeah, I think really to reinforce Nancy's point, what I find is most effective when people are looking at brand expansion is being really, really clear on your hypotheses or your objectives, because there is so many opportunities and there's so much that you could do, that if you just start doing, the risk is then you don't know what's worked and what hasn't. So making sure you've got a really clear hypothesis that you're testing, and so that you have actual controlled experiments with measurements and KPIs like we've talked about. So I think one of the things with brand expansion is, obviously in my world, the research and the insights is really important to understand if they are the right market, and then how to tailor and personalize your product and your marketing to go into that market. And there's sort of traditional research, which we all probably know and have experienced, which is big quantitative reports. You're probably imagining a 120-page PowerPoint slide that is sitting in the drawer somewhere. And you know, there is that research which is really good for helping you with your strategy and setting you up. But what I would really encourage you to look at is ways that you can gather more agile or modern research that helps you quickly test those hypotheses that you've got. And there's plenty of tools and digital sort of platforms out there that can help you do that. So looking at an example of a client we've worked with in the brand expansion space, one of those kind of areas where they've used more traditional methods and modern methods together, which has worked really well, is a food company that we work with. And what they knew from their sort of strategic research was there were several emerging markets that were possible for them. So they were Brazil, Mexico, Indonesia and Thailand. What they didn't know though was how they could best tailor their messaging to be most appealing in that market. But what they had to work with was a really good brand strategy. So what I would encourage you to look at before you start, going down a brand expansion path too quickly is to really understand your core brand strategy and messaging. So what they had was some clear pillars and how they communicated and differentiated their product. And what they were trying to understand was which elements of those pillars were most appealing in the markets that they were going to help them work out then how to enter that market. So, for example, one of the pillars was around health. So is it a vitamin C message? Is it a gut health message? What are the messages in the health space that is most appealing in that market? They had a quality pillar. So is it about the supply chain? Is it about the origin of the product that's most appealing in that market? Having a really good understanding of your core brand strategy and your pillars, and then understanding how you can tailor that to each market, I think is really important when you're setting up brand expansion. And just making sure you've got the right research tools and insights to help you do that quickly and effectively.
Thank you, Anna. So Anna did emphasize three important things. One is having an hypothesis in mind when you plan your expansion plan. I'm sure there's a reason why you wanted to expand in that particular market, and in the planning of your expansion, there should be some sort of an hypothesis that you need to test or you wanted to test in your expansion plan. The second point that Anna mentioned is regarding the availability of data. Okay, the availability of data, and make the data very agile, make it flexible to as you do this particular test. And the third and the most important thing is that when you do your expansion plan, always try to go back at your core brand strategy, your identity as a brand, and make sure that as you expand, of course, like what Anna said, and even what Nancy said, different markets require different, there are a lot of cultural nuances in that particular market, and we might get lost in that, in that consideration when we do our expansion plan. Make sure that when you expand, never forget your core proposition as a brand, your identity as a brand, and you need to kind of look at those, what are the strongest attributes of your brand that you can communicate to your particular target audience in that specific region. All right. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Nancy. So now we have Q&A. Yeah, Q&A. So we have Q&A from the audience. If there's any one of you would like to ask a particular question, the floor is yours.
Hi.
You have a question.
Hi guys. I'm Shaina. So my question is for Anna. So in our highly digitized world, we know that I think every brand knows that it's very important that we collect consumer data to be able to know how to grow our customers and be able to attract them in, but not all of the brands know how to activate effectively that data. So what is your top piece of advice for brands to be able to really leverage the consumer data that they have and that they're able to collect from their target consumers?
Yeah, thank you. I think at the heart of growth marketing it's about experimentation, and it's about measuring and understanding what you're doing to accelerate your growth. And I think the downside of having all of this data and metrics and insights is it's overwhelming. So my advice is to be really clear on the answer you're looking for. So Nancy mentioned it before. Don't go in there and just looking at your data to try and to find something out. Go in there with a question that is my conversion rate as good in Thailand as it is in Vietnam? It's not. Okay, well now I've got my problem that I'm trying to solve, so now I can look for more information, or I can gather some insight that helps me answer that question, versus kind of sitting back and swimming in the sea of data, which can be really overwhelming. So that would be my advice, is to really break down what it is that you're trying to understand. Use all of the tools and the platforms and the information you've got, but go in there with a question. Don't go in there just to sort of find something out, because you'll be there forever and you'll never get out.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Anna.
Thank you. Thank you, Anna. So we have a question from an attendee, from a virtual attendee. So by the way, we are seen not just physically but also online. So please invite your teams to attend as well. So there's an online question from an online attendee. I think I can address it to you, Nancy, since you've had your expansion plan recently for Vietnam and Thailand. So the question is, to gain more customers, business expansion is a necessary step. However, competition in the industry can be one of the factors. So what do you think is the best way for brands to keep up with this kind of situation while maintaining their brand identity?
For brand expansion, what you have to prepare for is really analyzing your competitors, not just your target market, but your competitors. What are they doing? How are they rolling out their marketing initiatives? Are they doing campaigns month on month, quarter per quarter, yearly? Also, you have to assess what are their USP. You can do this by visiting their website, social media. Why do you have to know this? It's important because this is where you will make it better. The only way for you to ensure that you're way above and beyond your competitor is to ensure that you deliver way and above what they're offering. So it's really more on understand their USP, understand what they're doing, marketing strategies, operations, and then you make it better. But you have to ensure that in terms of brand identity, you keep it, because you cannot promise on something that you cannot deliver. For example, if they're offering, so you're expanding, right? And they're offering free same-day delivery. Now, if you're just expanding, you don't have couriers yet, 3PLs yet in place, you cannot say, we also offer free same-day delivery. That's just insane. That will, like, I don't know what will happen to your business. So you have to find a USP that will work for you, brand-wise, and will work for your customers, okay? But if you can promise like free same-day delivery, good, that's good. But you have to ensure that you're committed to that and you really can deliver. So it's really more on understand what they're doing and make it better, but also ensure that you're sticking to your brand identity, you're not getting lost. Because I think this is a problem, a common issue with brands, right? They see that a lot of brands are rising, keeping up with the trends, etc. But the thing is, not every trending topic a brand you cannot ride on that, because sometimes it will not resonate with your market. They will just feel, oh, they're just trying hard. They're just trying to ride on this wave and, you know, get some eyeballs, impressions, etc. You cannot do that. You have to be very careful with your strategy. You have to ensure that regardless of initiatives, regardless of rollouts, you stick to your brand core, you stick to your brand messaging, and how people or your customer know you as a brand.
Thank you, Nancy. Very good answer. So I think just to kind of add what she said, customer data or competition data can also be overwhelming, especially when we are operating when we are a challenger brand. Okay, so because if you are a brand leader, or if you're in a oligopolistic kind of situation, when you're a challenger brand, it can be overwhelming to see a lot of staggering numbers about, or staggering GRP data, or staggering conversion data about your competition. And again, let's not be paralyzed by that information. Okay, so it's not always like what Nancy said. Not all trends we need to hijack. Not all what the competitor does, we do. Okay, it again boils down to, first, as a company, as a brand, are we capable of doing that or delivering that, that kind of message or that kind of proposition? And the second question is there an opportunity for us to actually level it up further so that we can compete in that particular offering or that particular proposition? Okay, any more questions from the physical and the virtual world?
All right. Whoa, that's really loud. If there's no other questions, thank you so much, Mark, Nancy, and Anna. Let's give them a round of applause, everyone. Thank you.